Thank you for tuning in to the Life of KG podcast. We are all about helping you guys in the beauty industry. Whether you're starting out in this industry or been in the business for years, we want to motivate you, educate you, and support you to grow. Enjoy the show.
Hey everyone, welcome back to A Life of KG. So can you believe we are on our 39th episode and it's our 1 year anniversary. 1 year, like that's absolutely crazy. I cannot believe we've been going for 1 year. I know that's not long and it's gone super fast, but yeah, a 1 year milestone. I'm well chuffed. We've interviewed such amazing people on the show and I'm so grateful for all of them to be able to bring inspirational stories and to be able to educate you guys listening, and I'm so grateful for all of our listeners. Without you guys there'd be no point in the show. So thank you everyone for tuning in and subscribing and liking and sharing the podcast. So today I'm interviewing Jade Jones from PreJades. A lot of you would know my view about pre-made lashes in the industry, and I think Jade Jones has been able to win me over with pre-mades. She's done mine today and they're absolutely stunning. And yeah, I'm looking forward to you guys listening to see her view on them, why she brought them in the industry, and how it has changed the game. So without further ado, here is Jade. Jade, thank you so much for coming to see me today.
You're welcome. I'm so excited to be here.
So can you tell everyone who you are, even though I'm sure most people know who you are, and what exactly you do?
My name is obviously Jade. My business is Jade Jones, previously Jade Jones Berkshire, and I specialise in eyelash extensions, and I train in eyelash extensions, which is what most people know me for, but I am also qualified in semi-permanent makeup, aesthetics, Botox, fillers, and I've recently just trained in nails.
Whoa, so a bit of everything.
Yes.
So take me back then, because we've all kind of got a story behind us. What made you get into the industry and then choose kind of lashes as your main thing?
So I worked in finance for 10 years as a financial advisor. I was head of compliance by the time I left. Worked with men predominantly, which is kind of what women usually like and prefer. Not working with women, but...
Yeah, I'd love to work with a man all day.
Oh, my whole office was men. It's crazy. They were literally just men, but they, oh God, if anyone ever listened to this, but they were very egotistical. We were all very young, working in London, living in London, earning really good money. And I did very well, and the guys didn't like it. And I had to train them, I had to teach them how to do all of their qualifications. And I just had no respect. I couldn't work there anymore. No, they didn't like the idea that a woman could earn as much, if not more, as them. So I took an eyelash course whilst I was in finance. Really enjoyed it.
How long ago was this?
I took the eyelash course 6 years ago.
Oh, wow, okay.
So my sister did an eyelash course. She was looking for a new job. And she was like, I need to do something. And I was like, eyelashes are going to be massive. At this point, I thought I loved finance. Yeah. So she went and trained with the Eyelash Emporium, hated it. I was like, oh, I might give it a go. So she gave me her kit. So I had a discounted price at the Eyelash Emporium. And I loved it. And when things were difficult with my job, I left. I only had a few clients. And I thought, I'm just going to make a go of it. Left London, moved to Maidenhead. So started on nothing. I didn't know anyone in the area apart from my boyfriend.
Wow.
Went into the lashes and I managed to get myself fully booked in month 1.
Really?
All day, every day. Smashed my target, luckily. Just through Facebook marketing, really. And here I am today. So 4 years I've been doing it full time.
Wow.
So
you would say most of that then was through Facebook marketing? Is that how you got it all up?
100%. It was
really?
all through Facebook. I had a couple of girls that I'd met in Maidenhead through my boyfriend that were my models. And I got them to post on Facebook groups constantly. So it wasn't me doing it, marketing myself. I would send them pictures and say, can you post this? And just say that I've just done your eyelashes and that you love them. Yeah. And then I would comment on it, and then they would comment on it, and maybe one other friend would comment it, and I would, and they would, and it would just push it up.
Yeah.
And back then there weren't a huge amount of people doing eyelash extensions, so it was my name that was being seen constantly. I think they say your name has to be seen 7 times for someone to remember you.
Yeah, and I think the stats go up now even more because of social media. Before social media, it's 3 times, and now it's then went up to 7, and I think it's now between like 7 and 14 times.
Yeah, more so now, probably 14, with how saturated the markets are.
Yeah,
there's so many lash artists being recommended, whereas back then there was me, maybe 1 or 2 others.
Yeah,
and by the time I moved house, which I did recently, there were 4 lash artists on my road. One of them was my next door neighbour.
Really?
Yeah.
I only see that on the school run now as well, actually. I take Lila to school, well, obviously I take her to school every day, but I remember taking her to school this particular time, and there was this girl there, and I saw her have the lash strips on the back of her hand on the school run. And I was like, she lives down my road, and I was like, oh my god. So I was like, oh my god, you're a fellow lash artist. And she was like, yeah.
So now it's so hard, but you can still do it that way. And I know some of my friends still do it that way. There's a recommendation, and they have groups. They have WhatsApp groups, Facebook groups, where there's a recommendation on one of these really popular groups, and they'll message our WhatsApp group and say, girls, there's a recommendation. Can you recommend me? Generally, people are going to go with the post that has the most recommendations.
Yeah, definitely.
So it does still work. It's just a little bit harder, and that's literally how I built my business quite quickly.
I love that. So when it comes to the actual industry, the lash industry, everyone knows you from your Premades. Yes. And it's really took off. So massive congratulations. Like, I know that's how I got to know your name and like be like, oh, who's Jade? Like, I'm intrigued. So what kind of made you want to lash Premade yourself? Obviously that's what you kind of specialize in now, would you say?
Absolutely. Premades is my passion, 100%. I really enjoy classics, and I enjoy Russian volume, but not as much, I think, because I'm quite slow. I don't do it all the time, so I'm quite slow. But with the Premades, as soon as I trained with the Eyelash Emporium, I started using Premades. I don't know how I heard about them. I used 3D Premades, absolutely loved them. Did that for 2 years, day in, day out. I used to work 6-7 days a week. I would leave half an hour for my infills. So I would literally get clients in and out in half an hour. They were happy, I was happy. But you can only go so far. Trained in classics, using Premades. I probably didn't know what I was doing completely. I'd only ever taken 1 course. So I decided I need to train in Russian volume. It took me 2 years because I thought I don't need to do Russian. I can create volume. It doesn't take me very long.
Yeah.
My clients aren't going to lay there for 2 to 3 to 4 hours. But to take that next step in my career, I had to. So I went and trained with Bryony Barkley, who I'd followed throughout my whole lash journey. And I thought if I was going to train, it was always going to be her. The training was amazing, and she literally opened up my eyes to lashing. I will never forget going to Bryony and saying, oh, I could do a full set in an hour. I literally cringe at the thought. She must have just thought, are you, like, in her head, God, she has no idea what she's doing. And I was thinking, I'm amazing. She was like, oh, blimey, I can't even do that. She was so polite. So yeah, trained in Russian volume, went back to my clients, started doing a bit of Russian volume, but most of them were comfortable with the Premade Fans with the time it took. I thought I really need to make a decision on what I'm going to do. So I went and trained with Maven, Trina.
Was she amazing?
She was insane. It was a 2-day course. There were 10 spaces released in London, and I think they literally went within 24 hours.
Really?
I was really lucky to get onto one of the spaces, and that's when I met some other lash artists, Vicky Rugg and some of the other ladies were there, and it was really good to kind of be part of like this little lash community. And Trina is very passionate about Russian volume and what she does, and focusing on your preferred style. So I left the training thinking I'm scrapping Premades, not doing Premades at all. Stopped the girls at my salon doing Premades. Said to every client, I'm not doing Premades. You're going to have Russian volume. You're going to have an hour per appointment. I'm going to basically double the price, but they're going to be fuller. They're going to last better. Everyone was happy for me to try it, but I would say probably 95% of my clients within 2 months said, look, I really appreciate what you're doing, and you're the art behind it, but we're paying more, we're here for longer, and there's no difference.
Yeah.
like, please, can we have the Premade Fans back? And I was like, oh God, I'd kind of like just met all these artists who didn't agree with Premade Fans. I'd scrapped them. And I was a bit like, oh, I don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, my business is about right now what my clients want, not what I want. So I thought, I'm going to do it, but I need to find my own.
Yeah.
So that's when I researched the markets, because my clients were then used to having 4D, 5D, 6D. And the Premades that I was using currently, anything above a 3D, the bases were horrible.
Yeah, really big.
Yeah, so I literally bought hundreds and hundreds of trays of lashes. I still got them all in my salon in a massive cupboard. Trialed loads, tried them on lash artists for feedback on the retention, the curl, and PreJades were launched. So I launched them in January last year. So it's been just over a year. Yeah, 1 year.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was really lucky that I kind of sent samples to some of the names that I'd met on my journey, and everyone was really honest and gave feedback. Some were, it's not for me, and some really loved them, but it was all very positive. So I think through there, and then again marketing through the Facebook groups, the Lash groups, sending out samples, it grew really quickly. It's been insane, and an insane, amazing journey.
Yeah. How do you think kind of Premades have changed the industry?
I guess they've been around for quite a long time, but just not as commonly used as they are now. And I genuinely believe that Premades are going to be huge going forward in this industry. I think you'll have classic lashes, you'll have Premades, and you'll have Russian volume. Whereas currently it's kind of classic or Russian volume.
Yeah.
There are variations of Russian volume with kind of mega natural, but I think Premades will be up there. Like, competitions are starting to include Premade categories. There are Premade courses out there now, so you can come and train and get a qualification in Premades. You don't need to do classic before. Or there are courses just if you've done your classic and you want to take a course on Premades. There is a lot to know about Premades. You can't just use them without any additional training. There's so much to learn, but I think Premades are going to be big, and I think new people coming into the industry want to learn how to use Premades.
Yeah, because they just want to get perfect and up scratch straight away, don't they?
Yeah, which is a little bit sad for a lot, Russian volume, because people want to learn volume, not necessarily Russian volume, and you cannot take away from the fact that Russian volume is so intricate, so artistic, it's amazing. But I do believe that Premades are going to be the way forward for the industry.
Yeah, I mean, anyone that's kind of like hearing this podcast knows that. Like, they're also thinking, what is Kate doing? Like, I thought she was against this whole Premade stuff. Everyone's obviously got their own views, and everyone is entitled to their opinion. And I think it's been nothing that I've hid away in the industry that I'm really anti Premades. And I know me and Jamie Butler done a podcast like when we first started this podcast, and we had a big debate about it. And I remember being on like the social media forums on Facebook, and I remember if someone mentioned Premades, I remember, you're gonna hate me for this, I commented back and was like, Premades is a swear word.
But back then they weren't as good.
No.
There was no training around them. People weren't using them properly. They didn't understand the weight breakdown behind them, and they did have big bulky bases, and they weren't being used properly. So we all only had that to compare them to. So of course people are going to have a bad opinion of them. They had a bad reputation.
That's why I think it does come down to training. A lot of people are not being trained on the Premades. So then if they're going straight from classic to Premades, they're not aware of all the weights and stuff that we learn on the Russian volume courses.
No, and that's what I did. I went straight to Premades from my classics, and my work was average. My clients were happy, I was happy, but I wasn't using them properly. And I wasn't aware I wasn't using them properly because no one had told me.
Yeah.
Whereas now that education is rising, the education levels around Premades is rising, and people are using them better. And, PreJades are, they're really lightweight. The bases are beautiful, and there are lots of other suppliers bringing out fans that are beautiful. And it's the same as Russian volume. People can do Russian volume and not create beautiful fans.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like anything. Like I always said, again, even with the podcast with Jamie, I was like, oh, give me 6 months and I must have changed my mind, because the industry is changing so much and evolving so much. And it's like when we used to do classic, these 0.25s. I was bang on that. I loved them. Now they are a swear word.
It was probably similar when people were doing classics and Russian volume came out, and people are like, you can't put 4 or 5 lashes onto a natural lash.
Yeah.
It's going to damage it. It's going to weigh a lot. But obviously, as more people do it and more education is brought out, more understanding around the product.
Definitely. I do think it's a lot down to education. Education is key rather than just thinking that, you know, it's going to be right.
And you're not the only one. When I started doing it, there's lots of, you know, very well-known artists in this industry at one point that didn't like them. Like, I always remember one lady, she'll hate me for saying this, so I won't say her name, but saying to me, like, she hates pre-mades, and I tried to show her my work and she was like, you'll never convince me. And, you know, she uses my fans occasionally now, and you know, you can't be that closed in this industry. It's always evolving. You have to be open to new things, or it's going to be difficult to grow.
Yeah, I agree. So tell me, why would I use pre-mades over Russian volume?
This is a difficult one. So it depends on how quick or how advanced or skilled you are at Russian volume generally, or if you're even trained in Russian volume. Like, Vicky Rugg, to me, is a magician when it comes to Russian volume. She can produce a practically full coverage set in 2 hours with beautiful fans. I cannot do that. So for someone like Vicky Rugg, pre-mades, there is absolutely no point in her using, because she could do a set in 2 hours of pre-mades. It's going to cost her £20. Or she could do a set of Russian volume in 2 hours and achieve similar coverage for £2 or £3. Whereas if you are me, for example, I take, probably if I had a client that has got full lashes, it's going to take me 4 hours to do a Russian volume set.
Yeah.
Whereas it's going to take me 2 hours to do pre-mades. Okay, it may cost me a bit more with pre-mades, but I can see 2 clients in the space that I could see 1 client. Therefore, even taking into consideration the cost of the product, I'm earning more money. And what do we all want more of? Or maybe not everyone, but us in particular, we want more time.
Yeah.
And if I can go and lay there for 2 hours or 4 hours and achieve the same look, I'm going to go for 2, and I'm going to buy myself 2 hours in a day.
Yeah, definitely. And I do get that. There are some people that are slower. There's some people that are faster. Like me and then my salon girls, we all do Russian volume within 2 hours. Like, we have it down to a T, and I've trained them to be that fast, but it doesn't come naturally to some people. And there are some girls at the moment that I'm training and they just can't get it. Like, and that's fine. It might just not come natural to them. So then pre-mades would be perfect for them. But then I guess then in the salon, it means that we would have to weigh up, or do we let her carry on doing lashes or do we not? Because we've got girls that do it in 2 hours using Russian volume. I guess it's very, like, it's things to weigh up, isn't it?
Yeah, they're definitely not going to be for everyone. But for example, someone just has a classic qualification, they're only classic trained, you can go and use volume without taking an additional qualification. You can create volume, you can give your clients volume. Okay, you are going to need to do more training, or I would recommend more training. They may not have to, but you can give your client volume without the Russian volume qualification. Although I do believe that my game changed when I trained in Russian volume, even though I still love pre-mades. Everything about Russian volume and making my own fans helped the way that I use pre-mades.
Really?
So I do still feel like it's important to go learn in Russian volume 100%.
Because also on the Russian volume courses, scrap the making the fan, but you learn more advanced techniques like eye styling and all of that stuff, which you won't obviously learn in a basic classic course because it's way too much information to 100%. Take on board. So then that will make your pre-mades even better because you're getting styling right. Because if your styling's rubbish, you are going to not produce a great set of lashes.
Yeah, so I'd offer beginner courses in pre-mades, and I touch on styling, but you can't teach styling in a beginner course. No. It's too much. You're going to overload the student's brain. That is more advanced. So yeah, if you've got your classic qualification and you want to go and do a further qualification, obviously you could just train in pre-mades, but if you're doing Russian volume, you're going to get that Russian volume qualification, and then you can use pre-mades to the best of their ability. So I've had some lash artists come and do the pre-made course, but they're trained in classics and Russian volume. They just want to know how to use the pre-mades.
Yeah, like I definitely want to do that.
yeah, there are just a few little tiny tips. And, you know, most of the stuff that I teach them, they know, but there's a few tiny little ways that you have to change the way you lash that will help you with Premade Fans.
Yeah, definitely. And also, like, it was, if anyone's listened to the podcast that I done with Vicky, she said, we discussed pre-mades and stuff on that show, and she uses them on like the inners, or if someone's come in and they've got an empty set and you need to hurry up, she might whack some pre-mades in, but she'll use them on like the inners and the outers and stuff. And I just thought that was a genius idea as well.
For the inners, the little 7s that I have in my stock, they're tiny little 3D 7s. The bases are beautiful, and especially when, you know, some people start on their outers, they get to the inners, they're running out of time, you rush the inners, you don't necessarily lash them all. They are perfect. And Vicky, yes, she'll use PreJades occasionally just in case she is running out of time, or on the inners. And lots of people that do rush and volume will actually do that. If I'm doing a rush and volume set, I'll probably end up mixing in some pre-mades if I'm running out of time. Obviously, I make the client aware, but if I'm honest, my clients don't care. As long as they're getting the look that they want to achieve, then they're not too fussed whether it's rush and volume or pre-made volume.
Yeah, I really like the idea of mixing them together. Really nice. So let's go over some myths, because obviously there's lots of myths around pre-mades, things like they don't last as long, you can't wrap around the natural lash, and you can't custom make a set like you can rush in. What would you say to them 3 myths? I think they're the main ones.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, I in my courses refer to them as common misconceptions, because, and obviously this is my opinion, but so the retention will be affected because you can't wrap. I, in my experience, have better retention with Premade Fans. That's not to say that everyone will. My Premade Fans are very light, so they're not too heavy, they're not going to cause damage. So in theory, they should last better because they don't weigh as much on the natural lash. When it comes to rush and volume and wrapping around the lash, there's more techniques out there nowadays. For example, crystallizing or setting your fan, which is a technique I actually learned with Trina from Maven and Vicky Rugg, where you create your rush and volume fan, you dip it in glue, and you set it into a fan before you apply it. Therefore, you have already dipped it into glue, and you're placing it on the natural lash as a set fan. So it's not going to wrap. Mm-hmm. And I have always done rush and volume like that. I've never had any issues with it. For me, wrapping a fan, I always found difficult because my fan's closed ever so slightly. So it means I can place that perfect rush and volume fan because I'm setting it. Mm-hmm. So using pre-mades is exactly the same theory. You're picking it up and you're placing it on the natural lash. I personally believe that it's a bit healthier because it's only attached to one part of the natural, as opposed to 3 or 4 or 5 parts of the natural. So when you're kind of peeling away a rush and volume fan, mm-hmm. potentially it could be causing more damage than if you were just peeling away from one area.
Yeah.
Lots of lash artists that I am aware of have pre-made fans, and they will 100% agree that the retention is better for them. Mm-hmm. But I would disagree with anyone that says rush and volume will always last better than pre-made fans. I don't believe it's true.
Really? Interesting. And what about can't obviously custom make to a client as if it was rush and volume? Would you say that's true?
Personalising a set. This is a difficult one. I can absolutely personalise a set, but I have a lot of stock. So if I have a client in and they need a huge range of lashes, they've got tons of layers, they've got straight lashes, so they need a bit of curl. I could use a C curl, I could use a CC curl, I could use a D curl within that set. I could use 3D, 4D, 5D, 6D, 7D, 10D. I've got 12Ds coming. You can absolutely, like I could, for example, use a narrow fan or a long stem fan on my bottom layers, and then the wider fans on my inners and my outers where the lashes aren't quite as full. So how could anyone say that is not personalizing a set? There are so many variations of pre-made fan out there. You just need quite a large stock. That's not taken away from the fact that you can personalize rush and volume easier. You can. You have your 0.07s next to you, you're going through your lashes and you look at a natural lash and you can work out if it needs a 2D, 3D, 4D, 5D, and you can make it there and then without kind of having to swap your lashes around. So it is definitely possible to personalize a set. It is just going to take a little bit more time and effort than it would with a Russian volume set.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the other one, you can spot Premades a mile off. Again, I literally do not believe that is true.
Well, I think from seeing you, a month ago, I think we first met, and I was like, oh my God, I love your lashes. And like, Premades. I was like, wow. So you no, I don't think that either, unless they're obviously bad quality Premades.
100%. I mean, if you were looking at a client as a lash artist and you're sifting through their lashes, yes, you can spot a Premade from a Russian volume. If the Russian volume is done to a really high standard, absolutely. But, you know, sat from where you are to I am opposite each other, you wouldn't necessarily know. Like how could you know? And I actually think that Premades will always look, depending on the person doing them, even more beautiful because they are consistent in the spacing between the fans. So they're always going to be really neat.
Yeah, but just when it comes to competition lashes and we're doing Russian volume, one of the things that we judge on is make sure the fan is consistent all of the time.
And that's so hard.
Yeah,
that's
so
why I'm
hard.
slow, because I aim to get perfectly even fans. And if I'm doing a fan and it's not even, I'm chucking it away.
Yeah.
So that's why it takes me 3 to 4 hours. Whereas with a Premade, you don't have to do that. You pick it up and it's made.
Yeah, definitely. I get that. So obviously downfall for someone using Premades, and obviously definitely why downfall for bringing in Premades is obviously the cost of them. I know we've just kind of briefly gone on that. But people are charging cheap because they're Premades, but yet not really considering the time. Like if they will take longer than what they'll take this, their Russian volume will take longer, but surely they'll take the same amount of time as classic, right? Because you still got to apply the Premade onto your natural lash. So it will still take the same amount of time as classic. But what would you recommend people should charge for them?
I would say Premades take a little bit longer than classics.
Right.
Purely because Premades have slightly bigger bases. So when you're using a Premade, you have to isolate for slightly longer. So some people will find that they could do Russian volume and Premades in the same amount of time. I can definitely do a classic set quicker than I can do a Premade set, but I can do a Premade set quicker than I can do a Russian volume set. For me, I charge the same as I do for Russian volume for Premades.
Mm-hmm.
I know people say that you should charge more for Russian volume because it's more of a skill, but I have invested thousands and thousands into training. I'm qualified in classics, Premades, Russian volume. Why should I charge less for Premades just because they're not Russian volume when you take into account the training and the money that I've spent? If I am personalizing a set and I am using different dimensions, different type of stem on the bottom layer, there's a lot of technical ability going into that. So who's to say that you should be charging less? The product costs a lot more. You need to be charging more. So with classics, people say, oh, I don't know how to charge it. For example, let's say you charge £50 for classics. A full set of Premades is probably going to cost between £15 and £20. You need to be adding that cost on. So charge £70 for a set of Premade fans. So you're still earning the same as you would per hour if you were doing a classic set, because you've added on the cost. People will pay it for volume.
Oh God, yeah, definitely. Especially if they're lasting exactly the same, they look better because they're more perfect. They have to remember to add on the extra cost. And I think a lot of people are missing that right now. What they see is the money at the end of the hand at the end of the service, and not actually realising, oh, it cost me 20 quid to do this set, and I've only made 30.
100%. One of my ambassadors, I keep telling her all the time, put your prices up, put your prices up. And she's a little bit scared to do it because her prices have been a set price for a little while. But when you take into account the cost of the product, the shipping, the cost of your time, if you're charging £30, £40 for a set of Premade fans, it's absolutely pointless.
Yeah.
Like if you're spending £15 to £20 on a full set, you know, to be in lashes, you can earn pretty good money.
Mm-hmm.
Like £15, £20 an hour is an amazing rate for an eyelash artist. So even if you're charging, you know, you want to earn £15 an hour, that's £30 you want to take home. You need to add the cost of that product. So minimum you should be charging for Premade fans is £50.
Yeah, definitely. How many trays will someone use a whole tray then for a set of lashes?
On your lashes, for example? Not necessarily. I have just obviously done your eyelashes using Premade Fans, and I would say we used 2/3 of a tray. So I sell a tray at £20. So it's probably cost what, £6-7. So that's really good. Generally, that's what I would say to cost an infill. But I could easily use a full tray on someone that has a ton of natural lashes.
Oh, I wish I had a ton of natural lashes.
So yeah, I would say £15 to £20 you're going to spend on a full set if someone has a good amount of natural lashes. I would say an infill is generally going to cost around £10, worst case, and a full set around £20. If someone doesn't have a huge amount of lashes, you're probably going to spend closer to between 5 and 10 per infill against a full set. So they're not cheap.
No.
But people were paid to gain more hours in the day.
Definitely, it's all about time.
I definitely would.
So obviously, like you said, you just done mine. Me and you have spent the day here together at KG Professional, and I took all of my lashes off last night, and you've done me a complete full set today, and I absolutely love them. Thank you. And I must admit, like, they are so perfect. Like, obviously, I have Russian volume all the time, so then go to Premade. I would say the look of them, I thought there's not even much difference other than they are so perfect. It's more like being precise. That's the difference. And the bases are obviously really thin all of the time. Whereas sometimes as a lash artist, if you are not consistent all the time, or you're back to back with clients all the time, you know what it's like. They might not be as consistent, whereas obviously these look perfect.
Well, you can't. Like, if you're in a salon environment and you have your 2-hour slots, you know, you're making your fan and you're putting it on. It's a good fan. It's not going to cause any damage. You're happy, your client's happy, but not necessarily going to be a perfect fan every single time. Whereas obviously with a pre-made, generally, depending on the pre-made you're using, they are going to be perfect every single time. That's not to say that the bases are thinner or thicker necessarily than Russian volume fans, but you know, you've seen the bases on my fans. They're really beautiful. They're really tiny. Really even on my Tendy fans, the bases are really small.
It literally looks like we've made them perfect and placed them on a tray. Like, that's what it looks like. It's not what I was, because I've been so anti them. I haven't even looked at them. I've never even ordered a tray, nothing. So I was like, no one's changed my mind on this. And then Jade rocks up.
And I literally, Katie and I met a month ago, and I said to her, I thought, I'm taking this opportunity. I said, let me lash you. Let me lash you. And you're like, what? I was like, let me lash you and you'll change your mind. And they do. They look absolutely beautiful. They're very lightweight. They're not going to cause any damage.
Yeah.
And I would say with pre-mades, you can potentially add a bit of length because they do. They don't weigh a huge amount.
Yeah.
Mine are very lightweight.
I love them. So going back to kind of business side of things, your business has obviously grown completely out of this world than I guess you ever imagined. Like, it's really took off. Did you ever imagine this would happen? Like, was this kind of your aim when you set out to do pre-mades?
It's all gone a little bit crazy, like in the most amazing way possible. I think when I started doing lashes, I didn't really have an end goal. I loved doing the lashes and I was fully booked and I had a good client base and I was happy doing that. It was only when I was turning business away constantly and giving clients away to other lash artists that I thought I need to get someone else in-house. So I took on another lash artist, and that's probably where my business started to grow. I took on another lash artist around the same time that I trained in Russian volume with Lay. Bryony took me on as one of her first trainers 2 years ago. So I guess my business grew a little bit from there. And then, launching the pre-mades kind of just is when it rocketed. And the name just got out. I think I did it right at the best time. So pre-mades were already out there, but people were talking about pre-mades quite a lot. Like I said earlier, I had the support of Bryony and Vicky and some of the bigger names, although they hadn't necessarily loved them in the past, they kind of believed in what my vision for them. And I guess because I'm posted over like Lash Obsession, some of the groups sent so many samples out, awareness of them grew really quickly. And I guess for like, my name wasn't very big, but people were seeing me maybe associated with some of the other girls who were accepting of it. It just made the whole thing a little bit more accepting. And everyone was like, oh, actually, she's talking about Premade Fans. She's talking about Premade Fans. Maybe I can try them.
Yeah.
And literally the day I launched, the orders went crazy. I've been so lucky. So for me, you know, my aim for my business is to be like the biggest, best supplier out there for Premade Fans. Like, I have no ambition to launch a line of Russian volume fans. I you know, Premade is my thing, and that is what I'm going to specialize in. There's so many variations.
Yeah,
there's so much that I can grow on and improve on. Don't get me wrong, half the time they're not perfect, and it's really hard. It's a struggle, and I guess any supplier will agree that that's difficult, but most of the time I've been really lucky, and my clients are all very happy with the fans.
That's so good. So over this kind of year that you've been going and it's been growing, what would you say has been your most successful or proudest moment, rather?
There's a few things, like in relation to the PreJades and the Premade Fans, 100% changing the opinion of some of the bigger names in the industry, because that for me is such a big achievement. Like, firstly, obviously I was training for Lay when I thought about bringing out Premade Fans, so I obviously had to check that Bryony was happy for me to do it, because she is Russian volume through and through, and she was happy for me to go with it and believed in me, and that made me feel amazing. And then people like Vicky, Amy Dommett was another one, very open about hating Premade Fans. And I remember her messaging me one day saying, oh, I hate Premade Fans, but if I'm ever going to try any, it's going to be yours. And I remember that feeling of thinking, oh my God. And then equally, like, coming here to you for the mentor session and you saying to me, do you want to come on KG and talk about Premades? I was just like, what the hell is happening? Like, this is amazing. So a few things like that, obviously, in addition to how well the response has been for the Premade Fans. I just can't even really quite believe it. It's insane.
Yeah, it's so cool.
So yeah, hopefully all of that is helping change the perception. And one day, you know, there'll be a product that is accepted kind of everywhere. Obviously not used by everyone, because not everyone is going to use them, but at least a product that's accepted and considered high quality.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, well done.
Thanks.
I love it. And then obviously business isn't easy. Like, there's always hard moments and struggles. What has been your biggest struggle of business so far?
Do you know what? It's really difficult. There's two things that I find quite tough, but at the same time, they're the most rewarding. So obviously when you have a team, it's not just you to think about anymore. You have to think about everyone else and, you know, what they're thinking and if they're happy. So trying to work out in my mind how to play that is difficult, but also very rewarding. So I've managed to build, you know, an amazing team who are very good at what they do. Like, my team of trainers have all won awards. The girls in my salon have won awards, which is amazing. And then in relation to PreJades, I guess just the inconsistencies with the product that can happen from time to time. So recently I've been not employed, but someone's joined my team as a quality checker, and he comes in and he literally will check every row of lashes, like one tray in a box, to make sure that they're consistent in length, they're consistent in curl, and sometimes some get missed. And obviously when you get a couple of people say, oh, you know, my lashes aren't the best, that sucks. They're all so nice. Like, everyone that ever has had a bit of a complaint has done it in such a lovely way that, you know, it's not a bad thing, because it helps me grow and it helps me rectify it. But when you're so passionate and you want everything to be perfect and it's not, I really struggle with that.
Yeah.
But I guess it's all a learning curve, and I'm still, you know, I'm just coming into my second year. There's so much growth and learning curves for me to improve on. I just need to kind of grow from it. And keep my customer service up. I think generally that's what makes it okay when my lashes aren't necessarily the best, because I'll rectify it as quickly as I can.
Yeah, it's all about customer service, definitely. If you fix it straight away, then the customer's just gonna be like, wow, that was quick, like, or I'm so grateful that they're not gonna have to spend out more money or more lashes. But manufacturing problems is definitely the hardest when it comes to supplying lashes. I'll never forget when we first started out and brought all these lashes in, and it's really hard when you get pallets of lashes arrive. If you, how the hell am I going to test all of these lashes? Like, and in the beginning you're just like, oh, I'm sure they'll be okay, and kind of stock them up, and then you start sending them out. And I remember people were saying that the lashes weren't fanning. This is like when we first launched the lashes, and I was like, what? They've always been fine, we've never had any problems. And it was the colour of the strip that they were peeling it off was different. I realised it was a different colour than what it was on our previous orders. And apparently some manufacturers had different colours depending on the location because of the weather. And so our manufacturer should have never have put black strips on our lashes. They should have always been gold. So people couldn't fan right with these lashes. So we had hundreds and thousands of lashes that were no good. And I just wanted to cry. But as long as you rectify it straight away with the customer, then they're generally always really good.
Yeah, I have boxes everywhere, boxes laying around everywhere at the moment that aren't good enough. And I'm trying to work out what to do with them, you know, put them into sale. I mean, they're beautiful lashes, but for example, I ordered, I think it was 3,000 mixed trays recently. Like, it cost me a lot of money. I ordered a C, a CC and a D curl in 60 and 70, and they turned up and they were all a B curl. The C's, the CCs and the D's, all B curl. Oh my God. This was probably towards the end of last year, and I'm still waiting for the correct version. Like, it's out of my hands. I just have to wait. It's so frustrating. But they're just sat there, like boxes and boxes of lashes in my house. Oh my God. Ian, my boyfriend, he's just like, seriously, but my house is a tip because it's just full of my work stuff everywhere.
Oh God.
My salon, my garage, my stock room. It's kind of just taken over our lives. I love it. He hates it.
How have you kept up with the demand of how the growth has happened so quickly?
Taking on a PA, really. I initially sent out all of the orders myself in addition. So obviously I have a client base. I was doing my clients, and then in the evenings from between maybe 8 or 9 until 12 or 1, I would sit there, literally package up the orders, write out the labels, fill out my drop and go forms, and then take them to the post office before I started work. I remember having to take my children, literally. Indy was tiny, I was full on pregnant. One day I remember my car breaking down. I had to get to the post office, and I had my baby in the carrier. Yeah. I had my son in the pram, and I had 2 bags on the pram of orders and the rest of the orders under the pram just to get to the post office. Like, it was really tough early days, but I loved it. I would be in the salon at midnight dancing away, really happy, but you just can't keep it up. No. It's too much. So now my sister is my PA, bless her, and she's amazing. She just does the orders.
She does all the orders for you.
Yeah, she'll let me know when we need to order stock. So that kind of side of it is managed elsewhere. So I deal with some of the queries depending on which Instagram account they're messaging. I kind of like to be involved in it, but the posting itself, she'll send out, and she puts all of her little stickers and stuff in the envelopes. It's really cute. I call her the Lash Giraffe. She's 6'2".
Is she?
Yeah. So on all of our little envelopes, if she's posted them, she puts the little Lash Giraffe on the envelopes. It's really cute. So just little things like that just make it a little bit more special. That's cute.
What does your day, obviously you're a mummy as well, like, what does your day-to-day life look like?
Oh, I'm not quite sure how I do everything I do. You know, you're probably the same. It's kind of like in our lives, work never sleeps. But I'll get up in the mornings, give my babies breakfast, get them dressed. My mother-in-law helps look after them. So I've got 4 Instagram accounts. So generally I'll try and post on all of those Instagram accounts before I see clients. So on my Jade page, my PreJades page, my Academy page, we've just launched Truly Yours, which are the strip lashes. So I try and do that. It doesn't happen every day. And then I'll generally maybe see 3 or 4 clients in a day, not too much. I've kind of stopped doing that as much. And then it's marketing for the girls in the salon, keeping on top of training, marketing for my trainers and keeping on top of the academy. And then everything else in between to keep like making sure obviously I've got enough lashes, ordering them. I help my sister do all the stock checks. Yeah, it's a little bit crazy. And then I've got a few other things in the pipeline. I sometimes think, right, I need to stop and get everything cleared before I take on something else. But we don't do it, do we? We think of another idea. We think, right, I don't want anyone else to do that before I do it. So I've got to get going on it. So I'm working on a few things at the moment, which are really exciting. But yeah, I don't know how I deal with it. Just don't sleep.
No, that's why we end up voice noting each other at like middle of the night.
I'm really sorry to message you so late, Katie, but it's the only time I'm going to get out of the way. And you're like, it's okay, I'm awake.
Crazy people.
I know. All lash people are the same.
I know.
All of my lash people, I just message at 11, 12 o'clock. Sometimes I feel a bit sad that I don't necessarily like message all of my friends anymore because I'm so wrapped up in my work and my life. And I guess because I speak to lash people that are up for the same hours as me, it makes me feel a little bit better. But yeah, it's hard to have a life outside of doing this and being a mum.
Yeah, definitely.
My children, well, Jax just turned 3 and Indy's 9.5 months. Wow. So it's full on. Yeah, and I finish work and then, you know, we spend a bit of time with them before they go to bed.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
And it's a life of guilt. Guilty you're not working enough, guilty you're not a good enough mum, you're spending enough time with your children.
But it's all for them.
Yeah, you can only do your best, can't you?
Definitely. Oh, well, Jade, I've loved spending the day with you. And we get to spend next weekend together. It's fun.
Oh, yeah, always events by Bonita. I'm excited for that.
That would be good. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your vision about Premade and changing my vision on Premade.
I just can't believe you let me lash you. I'm so excited.
I know. And I adore you and I wish you so much more success in the future and just well done for smashing it so far.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
We would love to hear what you thought about this episode.
I love the show, guys. You're awesome.
Please leave a review and share on social media tagging @KG Salon so we can share.
I always follow them.
Until next time, have an amazing, successful week.